Hello! Thanks for tuning in to this Aztlander presentation. We're now going to be exploring the Maya underworld. And I'm Jim Reed. I'm an independent researcher. I'm the editor-creator of the Aztlander magazine of the Americas, the editor-creator of the Institute of Maya Studies Explorer newsletter, and I'm a board member of the Maya Conservancy and the Institute of Maya Studies. And at the lower left, you'll see a sketch from famous artist Terry Rutledge featuring the Maya hero twins playing a ball game against the denizens of the underworld. And my background cave slide is by Rosemary House. Enjoy! Anyway, the piecing together of ancient Maya mythology and cosmology, whatever difficulties it may involve, is not the utterly impossible challenge it once may have seemed. Broad new insights often seem to manifest themselves almost overnight. And in a field of inquiry to which only social anthropologists and ethnohistorians seem capable of being provided, capable of making much of a contribution, we find new insights and are being provided by iconographers, epigraphers, linguists, archaeoastronomers, and even dirt archaeologists. And thank you, Barb, for that quote. In this presentation, I intend to bring together aspects of several of these fields with the intentions of shedding some new light on the still only dimly perceived underworld of the ancient Maya. In the ancient Maya, people conceived of their world as a three-tiered universe consisting of the sky, which is Kan, here in the illustration at right, which creates a dome in the heavens, the four-sided earth, that is the abode of humans and animals and plants and trees and mountains, and that's Cobb here, and the world beneath the earth, the underworld, here noted as Xibalba. The earth itself floats on a watery base, often associated with the underworld. Connecting the three levels is the axis mundi, the world tree, or center of the universe, usually represented by a tree, usually a ceiba tree, whose branches are in the sky and whose trunk rises through the earth and whose roots extend down into the underworld. Therefore, the underworld is characterized as a watery place beneath the earth, associated not only with fear and death, but the life-giving properties of plants that spring from the earth itself, like the world tree and maize. And I did this illustration at right, and you can see the hero twins igniting a sacred fire at the base of the sacred ceiba tree that permeates all levels of the Maya cosmos. Depicted are the 5 or 9 levels of the underworld, as well as the 13 levels of the upper world. And the pathways of the daytime and nighttime sun, daytime, nighttime, double-headed serpents are superimposed over the 4 directional colors that you see here. And this was all based on elements from stela at the site of Xibalba, a site that Cheryl Norman is very, very familiar with. I've been there, and maybe 3 times with her and her husband, Garth.
Thank you.
And y'all can look at images and read the credit lines. I'm just going to read the text. I had a problem a couple of shows ago where I had 22 pages of text all printed out in order. And then halfway through the program, my cat knocked them on the floor. So I've learned from that experience, and I plan to read from the slides, and that'll help anybody eventually watching the recording also. So Sir John Eric Sidney Thompson was a leading English Mesoamerican archaeologist, ethnohistorian, and epigrapher who dominated Maya studies until well in the 1960s. Following Thompson, the Maya underworld occupied the lowest 5 levels beneath the Earth's surface. Thompson argues convincingly that the famous 9 levels actually refer to 4 steps down to a 5th level, where Xibalba, also called Mental, was located, and then 4 coming up. The sun on its journey through the underworld after sunset followed these 9 steps to the eastern horizon, where it reemerged at dawn. The dead also followed this path, at least the first part of it, and the road into this land was lengthy and hazardous. Here we have a nice illustration by artist Steve Radsey, who lives only about a mile and a half from me here in South Florida. And he's taken off to the Yucatan once again. And the Chamula Tzotzil include in the graves of their dead a pair of new shoes that will stand up to the rigors of the journey, and dogs were believed to aid one in crossing a body of water. Food for the journey and magical defenses against perilous animals and birds were also placed with the deceased. What kind of place was the underworld? For the Quiché Maya, the highlands of Guatemala, Xibalba was an underground region inhabited by the enemies of man. The Popol Vuh characterizes the lords of the underworld as tyrannical, hypocritical, envious, and cruel. They were not immortal, however, and therefore they may not have been deities in the usual sense of the word. And despite the fact that they lived beneath this middle world, their land was not unpleasant and dark. They had night and day. Their land had trees and animals. They grew maize, ate, slept, made love, and died seemingly as the mortals of this world do. Ethnohistoric sources, apart from the Popol Vuh, frequently characterize Xibalba as less desirable place. Diego de Landa tells us that evildoers went to Mental, where they were tormented, while the good went to a delightful heaven. And Christian beliefs are most probably influencing Landa's interpretation here, as well as many of those in other ethnohistoric sources which depict the underworld as a suspiciously hellish place and frequently opposed by an equally suspicious celestial paradise. And then the Popol Vuh. And here's a really nice painting by Diego Rivera of the creation of the universe, and it features Maya creator gods, as including Quetzalcoatl. The sky, the earth, and the underworld were all homes to deities. Ancestors inhabited the sky. Beneficial deities, mischievous or dangerous spirits lived in crevices and canyons, and the underworld was the home to the dreaded lords of the underworld, who were the bringers of death and disease described in the ancient Maya creation myth. Although considered to be a post-classic document, pre-classic Maya iconography suggests that the mythic creation narratives of the text date as far back as 100 BC, at least, and may have deeper antiquity as evidenced in the monuments at Izapa in the Piedmont area of Guatemala. The earliest known hieroglyphic version of the Popol Vuh was first translated into Spanish orthography in the 16th century, probably no later than 1558 CE. Between 1701 and 1703, a Spanish priest, Francisco Jimenez, copied the text and added a Spanish translation. The Popol Vuh, or Popol Vuh, in the Quiché language, is the story of creation of the universe by creator gods and the eventual creation of the Maya, men of corn. Members of the royal Quiché lineages that had once ruled the highlands of Guatemala recorded the story in the 16th century to preserve it under Spanish colonial rule. Upopavu, meaning book of the community, narrates the Maya creation account and tales of the hero twins and the Quiche genealogies and land rights. In this story, the creators, Heart of Sky, and 6 other deities, including the pheasant serpent, Quetzalcoatl, wanted to create human beings with hearts and minds who could keep the days and honor the god. But the first 3 attempts failed. When these deities finally created humans out of yellow and white corn who could talk, they were satisfied. In another epic cycle of the story, the Death Lords of the Underworld summon the hero twins to play a momentous ball game, where the twins defeat their opponents. The twins rose into the heavens and became the sun and the moon. And through their actions, the hero twins prepare the way for the planting of corn, for human beings to live on earth, and for the 4th creation of the Maya. And thank you, Barb, once again. The mythic pages of the Popol Vuh describe a journey of 2 pairs of hero twins and their descent into Xibalba, arguably through the mouth of a cave. The first set is a man, Hun Hunapu, meaning 1, and his brother Vukub Hunapu, meaning 7. And the second set are his twin sons, Hunapu and Xibalanque. In the story, the twins are summoned to the underworld. The first pair, Hunhunapu and Vuku, to play ball with the evil lords of death and disease. The lords have names such as 1 and 7 Death, Gathered Blood, Pus Demon, Jaundice Demon, Skull Staff, and Bloody Teeth, to name a few. The first set of twins lose the game and are sacrificed by the evil lords, but after many trials and tests, the second set of twins defeat the lords and destroy their power over humans. The hero twins play ball against the denizens of the underworld, and this is a sketch by Terry Rutledge. Excuse me, it was before one of his famous full-color paintings. And I'm saying this is courtesy of Terry's friend Hep Alburn, who I've been in contact with, but I think these sketches were posted before Terry's passing and, you know, are therefore in the public domain. But we have some key elements from the story in the Popol Vuh. There's a stingray. The catfish down here lets you know you're in an underwater world. Eyeball necklaces on some of the gods. An owl up here. And here's a big bat. And a death hand. And I suppose this is the death hands. I'm not sure where the death hand is. They resurrect their father, who arises as the Maya Maize deity, but remains to dwell in the underworld. Their acts clear the way for the universe to be set into motion, the sun to rise, and the stars to begin their journey across the sky. And the legend of Hunapu and Xibalanque, the birth of the twins in Maya culture, is sometimes very rare and therefore magical, the birth of twins in general. The Maya gods, Ixmiacoc and Ixmican, had 2 twins, Hun Hunapu and Vukub Hunapu, known as the first twins. The first of them, Hun, eventually also has 2 twin sons with the Maya goddess Ixbalquillo, and these twins are called Hunbats and Hunchuen. They were known as the monkey twins. Animals bring offerings and vases to Itzamna. And on this rollout vase, we see the hero twins over here, together with the monkey twins down here. Father, sons, and uncle spent a lot of time together and often played the sacred ball game called Poktapok. According to the story in the book, the playing field was just above the entrance to the underworld realm Xibalba, And the gods of evil, disturbed by the noise caused by the games of the first twins, devised a plan to kill them. They decided to invite them to a ball game in the underworld realm. But along the way, the demons set them multiple traps, and eventually the brothers lost their lives, burying their bodies in the underworld pit. Who's ever unmuted, please mute yourself. From the tomb of Hunahpu, a tree is born whose fruits were shaped like a skull. Among the skulls, with time, the head of Hunahpu appeared, who spoke at will when he considered it appropriate. There's still people coming in. After a while, the daughter of the Lord of Xibalba, Princess Ishkik, heard about the legend of the Hunahpu tree and, intrigued by the story, wanted to see the tree with her own eyes. Finally, she found him, discovering that the stories were true. And here you see the head of the maize god as a cacao pod in this cacao tree, in this drawing by Simon Martin. And this illustration by artist Steve Radsey. Then Hunahpu spoke to the princess, asked her to come closer, and spread her hands in front of him. It was then that Hunahpu performed a spell that would make the princess of the underworld become pregnant. The princess, fearing discovery, escapes the outside world, where she meets Hunahpu's mother, who helps her give birth to the main set of twins, the hero twins Hunahpu and Xibalba. Among the Maya gods, Ishkik is essential insofar as it represents the feminine evolution in the history of the Popol Vuh. And the name means women's blood, strength, vigor, or vigorous blood. She represents the purity, beauty, strength, and value and evolution of women in Maya culture. Her mission was to procreate the two twin heroes, and being the only woman in Xibalba, she represents the union of the underworld with the overworld. The two brothers wander for a long time without a place to settle, aimlessly and abandoned by their mother and family, until their older stepbrothers take them as servants, enslaving them and forcing them to hunt and work for them while they play and dance. After a while, the second twins discover that by inheritance, they have magical powers, which they decide to develop and enhance. So here's Hunbats and Huntren, the older brothers, the monkey twins. And here we have two versions of Hunahpu and Xibalba in this illustration painting by Diego Rivera. One day, fed up with the mistreatment of their older brothers, Hunahpu and Xibalba make their evil stepbrothers climb a tree that they make grow very tall with their magical powers. Although the evil stepbrothers begged for mercy, the second twins decided to punish it. In this way, the brothers Hunbats and Huntren became monkeys and were called the monkey twins. From that moment on, Hunahpu and Xibalba begin to overcome a series of adventures, such as the one that confronts them with Vuku Kakish, also known as Seven Macaw, the vain overlord of the third world. A gigantic bird with ears of greatness whom they defeat, displaying surprisingly regenerative and healing powers that they develop with skill. And there is a theory, which I also believe in, that Seven Macaw represents the Big Dipper going around the center. As you look to the north, all the stars will kind of circle around one. And that center star has changed over time. Now we call it the North Star. But anyway, this was the original creation story center that came over from the Asia tradition and down and around, whether by boat or land, and influenced shamans all down through the Americas. but it was the Maya who discovered the two main creation centers with the crossroads of the ecliptic, the pathway of the moon, the sun, the stars, uh, and the circle of brighter stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Those two crossroads, as you look out of the galaxy towards where Gemini is and the creation center, or the other creation center, the third one, as you're looking towards the center of the galaxy. Um, the twins discovered that what happened to their father and uncle in the underworld some time ago and decided to avenge their deaths by planning an elaborate revenge against the Dark Lords of Xibalba. As part of the plan, the brothers learned to play the ball game on the same court as their father and uncle long ago, and that bothered the demons of the underworld at that time. Again, the gods of the underworld challenged those who disturbed the entrance of their world, and the twins arrive at the same crossroads where they fell into the trap that took their lives. But using a magic trick, the twins turned in one of their hairs into a mosquito to see which was the correct path to take. Another illustration by Steve Rodsey. They finally reached the palace of the underworld, where the demons were surprised by their arrival since their traps had no effect. The gods then offer them the hospitality of their palace during the night to have the game in the morning of the next day. But during the night, the twins are attacked and Hunahpu is beheaded, but he does not die. The next morning, the brothers report to the game, and the demon god presents Hunahpu's head as the ball for the game. Xibalba managed to recover the head of his brother, and places it back on the body of his brother, magically restoring it. The lords of Xibalba then challenged them to a last test to demonstrate their bravery, before which, even knowing the impossibility of the challenge, the twins are not able to refuse to demonstrate their honor and courage. The test consists of jumping a huge fire pit into which the twins fail in their attempt, and the lords of death then crush their charred bones and throw them into the river. But again, magically, the ashes do not flow with the water, and instead they settle under the riverbed, and the twins transform into catfish and return to life again. 5 days later, they return to the kingdom of Xibalba disguised as old sorcerers and perform tricks resurrecting animals and people. Two astonished underworld lords demand to be part of the game and ask to be killed so that the old sorcerers will later resurrect them. Hunahpu and Xibalba kill the first of the Dark Lords and refuse to resurrect them. And when they go imposingly to kill the main Lord of Darkness, he realizes what is happening and crying begs for mercy, since he sees that the old sorcerer's power surpasses him. Then all the vassals of Xibalba, seeing the humiliation to which their lord is subjected, and outrage and repudiate their dark kings. Hunahpu and Xibalba reveal their identity and subdue all the demons and evil geniuses who believed they were dead. The triumphant twins spare the lives of the inhabitants of the underworld in exchange for taking away all their dark powers to do evil. And in a show of necromancy, they communicate with their father and uncle, promising them to respect and venerations of future generations. The hero twins left Xibalba and climbed back up to the surface of the earth. They continued up into the sky, becoming the sun and the moon. And now that the sun and the moon were in the sky and illuminated the earth, the creator gods created the final form of human beings using white and yellow corn. Corn is the precious substance that ultimately succeeds in producing true and enduring humans. Now, this is some new information. It just came out in the June issue of Nature magazine. But back in 1967, during the construction of the airstrip near Chichen Itza, bulldozer operators made a grisly discovery. Barely 1 kilometer from the site's iconic step pyramid. My cat's playing with the keyboard. Was a chaltoon connected to a low-ceilinged cave. The 2 chambers held the scattered bones of more than 100 young children. A study published in Nature describes DNA data from 64 of the children, showing that all were male and some were twins. Although early accounts of the site had speculated that many Maya sacrifices involved girls as a way to appease deities and ensure fertile harvests, every one of the 64 children analyzed were genetically male. Even more surprising, DNA analysis showed that 25% of the children were close relatives, such as brothers or cousins, and there were 2 pairs of identical twins. And that pattern links the remains to a key Maya myth. The selection of close relatives and twins pointed to the hero twins. The twins Hunahpu and Xibalba voyage to the underworld and are repeatedly sacrificed and resurrected, as I just recounted. And it's a story thought to be connected to agriculture, as the boys cycle back to life like maize plants in the spring. And Jaime always says, that's really a holy hell moment. You can make a direct connection to the Popol Vuh. And it doesn't get any cooler than that. We couldn't have known this without ancient DNA. So caves as portals to the Maya underworld, and Barbara MacLeod knows a lot about this. Based on Popol Vuh, as well as ethnographic accounts reported by Thompson, archaeologists Barbara MacLeod and Dennis Poulsen were the first to argue that the ancient Maya conceptualized caves as the entrance to the underworld. And this background image that I'm using is by Rosemary House. Among the ancient Maya, caves were thought of as underworld places, as well as transitional spaces between the earth that were, and in many traditional communities today still are, conceptualized as some of the most sacred features of the natural landscape. Archaeological research, as well as ethnographic accounts, demonstrate that caves were not spaces to be revered from afar, but places where humans could propitiate and placate both beneficent and dangerous deities. The archaeological record attests to their use among the ancient Maya, and elaborate architectural modifications at some sites suggest they served as salient backdrops for large public ceremonies. The utilization of cave environments for the production of visionary experience has at least one modern ethnographic parallel, and therefore the suggestion that such experiences were sought by the ancient Maya may be based on more than empty speculation. In the enchantment of cave ceremony at Balancanche in 1959, the Human Ichman Romualdo Hoyle of Ixtacalcop ordered one of his retinue to remain seated on a rock facing offerings in the total darkness, while all other participants in the ceremony moved to a different part of the cave. Alfredo Barrera Vasquez records that later, when they returned, they found the assistant seated in the same spot where he had been left. And the human questioned him and found out what he had heard. He responded that he had felt cold and that 4 times there were noises from the water, as if something were moving on its surface. And the human commented, "You were listening to the balams." And David Hickson says this is a wonderfully preserved example of Maya cave art. I've not seen any publications that discuss this painting, so I will hazard a description for those who had trouble seeing what is depicted. There seems to be a large face on the right, which may be wearing a dark mask. In front of his face, it is an empty effigy vessel. It is an effigy vessel with a human head as an effigy adornment. This effigy head is wearing a bird headdress, and the object that may be a stirrer is sticking out of the top of the effigy vessel. And I've seen this painting at least 2 or 3 times, way back in the deep areas of the, oh gosh, what cave is it? Loltun Cave. And there's a place where you can hit the stalactites and it makes a beautiful sound. The only other analog to this subject occurs in the Popol Vuh itself, in the trials of the hero twins and their father and uncle in the House of Darkness. But such trials may have been part of actual rites administered to elite youth who were taken through rituals duplicating specific portions of the great legend from which the Popol Vuh is derived, is thus suggested. Thank you, Barb, once again. Xibalba then, beyond just being a myth, was part of the Maya cosmology, which was actually experienced. What is more, its awesome reality can be experienced even today, surviving perhaps less altered by time than in any other aspect of the ancient Maya environment. In this way, with the aid of ethnohistory, archaeology, and iconography, caves can help bring us that much closer to an accurate view of the ancient Maya underworld. People are still entering. And the Maya creator gods, most scholars say that the Mayas had 13 creator gods. These deities played a role in the classic, post-classic, and contact period times of Maya religion. The names are mainly taken from the books of the Chilambalam, Lacandon ethnography, the Madrid Codex, the work of Diego Landa, and the Popol Vuh. Depending on the source, most names are either Yucatec Maya or Quiche, and 13 was a number belonging to men, and 9 belonged to women. And a few of the creator gods are listed here. I'm going to try to pronounce these as best I can. Olom, the god of the sky and wood, a creator deity. Bitol, a sky god, one of the creator and destroyer deities who participated in the last 2 attempts at creating mankind. Huracan, one leg, one of the 3 lightning gods together called Heart of Sky, and acting as world creators. God of the weather, wind, storms, hurricanes, and fire, who participated in all 3 attempts at creating humanity. His name, understood as one leg, suggests God K of post-classic and classic Maya iconography, a deity of lightning with 1 human leg and 1 leg shaped like a serpent. God K is commonly referred as Bolon Tatskab and Kawil or Kawil. The name may be ultimately derived from Huracan, a Taino word, and the source of our word hurricane. Itzamnaj, the founder of Maize and cacao, as well as writing, calendars, and medicine, once mentioned as the father of the Bacabs, the 4 directional supporters. Supreme creator God Itzamna rules over the heavens where he lives, usually portrayed as a toothless, but sprightly old man with large god eyes, a hook nose, elaborate headdress, and distinguished bearing. Itzamna is sometimes dressed as a high priest and hieroglyphically identified as the god of rulership. Speaking generally, classic iconography confirms Itzamna's identity as an upper god, seated on his celestial throne while governing, among many other things, the affairs of agriculture and the hunt. And Itzamna is the mascot of the Institute of Maya Studies. Ishmucain and Ishpiakok, the creator god couple who I mentioned before, who helped create the first humans. They also are the parents of Hunhunapu and Xibalanque. Uh, Hunhunapu and Vukub, 1 and 7 Hunapu. And they were called grandmother of day, grandmother of light, and bearer twins twice over. Begetter twice over, and given the titles midwife and matchmaker. Oh, here's a nice one. Nohochakyum, a creator and destroyer deity, the brother of the death god Kassim, or possibly another earthquake god also known as Kassim. Kukulmats, feathered snake god and creator. This is from Kiche. The depiction of the feathered serpent deity is present in other cultures of Mesoamerica. Kukulmats of the Quichemaya is closely related to the god Kukulkan of Yucatan and Quetzalcoatl of the Aztecs. Tepu is a sky god and one of the creator deities who participated in all three attempts of creating humanity. And Maya gods of the underworld. There are many supernatural beings concerned with death in the Maya underworld. The death gods spread deadly diseases, stench, and decay, and the Maya death gods, Apuk, Asimi, Asizim, Hunau, Kimi, and Yum Kimil, known by a variety of names, are two basic types of death gods who are respectively represented by the 16th century Yucatec deities Hun Hao and Ukmitun Ahau, mentioned by the Spanish Bishop de Landa. Hun Hao is the lord of the underworld. Iconographically, Hun Hao, Apuku, and Ukmitun Ahau correspond to the gods A and A prime. In recent narratives, particularly in the oral tradition of the Lacandon people, there is only one death god called Kisim, who acts as the antipode of the upper god in the creation of the world and of the human body and soul. This death god inhabits the underworld that is also the world of the dead. As a ruler over the world of the dead, Mental or Xibalba, the principal death god corresponds to the axe god Miklikantiklutli. The Popavu has two leading death gods, but these two are really one. Both are called death, but while one is known as one death, the other is called seven death. They were vanquished by the hero twins, and the two principal death gods count among the many were animals and spooks, Wayab, inhabiting the underworld, with God A Way in particular manifesting himself as a headhunter and deer headhunter. Oh man, boog. That's my cat. They were vanquished by the hero twins. The two principal death gods count among the many were animals and spooks. Wayab. Boog. Apuk, Hunhao Gade. He is a grotesque but comical figure. He hangs out with spiders, centipedes, scorpions, and owls, all considered to be bad omens. Due to a copying error in the 16th century text, he is sometimes called Apuk. Balam, the jaguar god of the underworld, also any of group of jaguar gods who protected people in community. Bolomyoteku, god of merchants, war, and the underworld. And even though this god appears frequently in the codices of Maya art, his name is still uncertain. He is often shown in scenes of the Maya underworld, and he presided over the communities of gods that assembled when the cosmos was created. His jaguar and owl attributes point to sorcery, violence, and warfare. He is a wrinkled, aged god with a hued nose, large god eyes, and a broad winged hat with a black-tipped owl feathers on the top, or the entire bird, and a fringed cape. He is often smoking a large cigar. And Bolong has survived even into the modern Maya world with what's his name? Lacatitlan, Mashimon. Mashimon. He smokes a cigar and has a lot of these same attributes from the old merchant god. Boy, it carries the hour late. Jeez. Chakbole. Chakbole is associated with the sun's passage through the underworld and the lord of death, Apuk. Chakbole and Chakvalam is depicted with a jaguar head, protruding incisors, and a strand of braided hair. His skin, dotted with spots like that of a jaguar, symbolizes the night and the celestial vault full of stars. He represents strength and power. Cassine is the name of the death god among the Lacandon, as well as the early colonial Choles, Quis being a root with meanings like flatulence and stench. Landa uses another name and calls the lord of the underworld and prince of the devils, Hun Hao, a name that reoccurring in early Yucatec dictionaries as Hum Hao and Kum Hao, related to Apuku. The Maya Lords of Death. Xibalba is an underground court of the 12 Maya Lords of Death. Hun Kame, one death, and Hun Kiao Kame, 7 deaths, are the most powerful. And in the Popavu, the hero twins descend to the place of fright, where the pair of death gods rule over a series of disease-bringing deities. The twins defeat the death god and put restrictions on their cult. The remaining 10 lords of death work in pairs and are demons responsible for different forms of human suffering, disease, and death. There's scab stripper and blood gatherer that sicken people's blood. There's a demon of pus and demon of jaundice that cause people to swell up. Bone scepter and skull scepter turn dead bodies into skeletons. The demon of filth and demon of woe hide in the dirty corners of people's homes and stab them to death. Wing and pack strap cause people to die coughing up blood on the road. The lords of the night, which you can see depicted over here by the G numbers. In Mesoamerican mythology, the lords of the night are a set of 9 deities who each ruled over every 9th night, forming a calendrical cycle. Each lord was associated with a particular fortune, bad or good, and that was an omen for the night they ruled over. Lords of the night are also known in both Aztec and Maya calendars, although their specific names of the Maya night lords are unknown. The glyphs corresponding to the night guards are known, and Mayans identify them with the labels G1 through G9, and generally these glyphs are frequently used with a fixed coined glyph F. The only Maya night lord that has been identified is god G9, Pahatun, the aged quadripartite god. Finally, there is a living Maya legacy as well. And the descendants of the Maya number to about 8 million today. Proud of their heritage, they still tell old myths at festivals and funerals, although perhaps less often than they used to. Some of them remember the old gods asking chalk for rain, thanking Hunhunapu for a good harvest, and fearing that Apuku is prowling about, hungry for victims. In Yucatan, a television series called Let Us Return to Our Maya Roots promoted traditional language and custom and the mythology that once expressed the visions and beliefs of much of Mesoamerica remains part of the culture that is still alive today. And this was a culmination of a very wonderful, ceremony with the Maya of Momostenango, Guatemala, where Dennis and Barbara Tedlock become daykeepers. And here I am over here way on the left with one of the ceremonial telas. And this is hanging in my closet just a few feet from me here. And here's the flutist I tried to get going. This is Pablo Collado. We took him along. And this is Rigoberto Menchu with his wife and kids. And back here is Cheryl Norman and Garth Norman. Cheryl's with us tonight. Mary Lou Ridinger, her and her husband Jay discovered the ancient jade mines. We got a bunch of other people. But 42 of us took 13 Maya elders into Xibalba to reignite the sacred fire at Xibalba. Nobody had done ceremony or ritual at Xibalba in over 900 years. And that's, although they're pushing the early sacred calendar back into the Olmec times, Xibalba was on the major trade route that came down along the Pacific coast, and with the alignments to the volcanoes, it's a place where the sacred calendar and the Hob calendar might have been devised, at least in a form to spread up over to the rest of the Maya. So thank you all for putting up with me and my cat and my missing tooth. And let me just thank a few people. One is Steve Radsey, illustrator extraordinaire. Steve had been illustrating Maya sites for many years. His illustrations of Maya archaeological remains display a singular sensitivity and attention to detail. And you can see a gallery of his work at mayavision.com. Also, Luis Garay, he's working on a series of the creation stories of the Maya, the Aztecs, and the Incas. The first in the series with author Victor Montejo is Popavu, a sacred book of the Maya. It is available in English and Spanish, and check out all of his books that he's illustrated at Luis Garay Art. And kudos to Mexicolore and my guy, Ian Marcel. Mexicolore is a small specialist independent artifact-based teaching team providing in-school visits and teaching resources on Mexico, the Mexica, Aztecs, and the Maya based in London. Since 1980, their living history teams have made over 3,500 visits to schools and museums throughout England. And Ian Marcel directs a beautiful educational website, and he commissioned 6 of the illustrations by Steve Radsey, especially for my my Exploring the Maya Underworld article was published in 2 different parts on Mexicolore. And Ian commissioned Steve to do the illustrations that you saw. And I really thank you, Ian. Thank you, thank you. And we can't forget about Justin Kerr. And for almost 50 years, photographer Justin Kerr and his wife Barbara have devoted themselves to the documentation of Maya art and writing. Kerr's photographs of Maya objects are featured in many books, including Blood of Kings, Painting the Maya Universe, The Art of the Maya Scribe, and many others. His rollout photographs of thousands of Maya painted vases, available to all on mayavase.com site, is now the largest single archive of Maya writing and the art available anywhere. Thanks to LACMA for hosting this great archive for many years, and now thanks to Dumbarton Oaks Library of Harvard University for hosting. And I've met Justin Kerr before, and he gave me permission to use his rollout photos any way I wanted to, as long as I gave him credit, which I have always done all through these past few decades. And but now, since they're housed at Dumbarton, it's best to get their, well, it's even okay with them, as long as you're doing it for educational purpose. So props to Justin Kerr. And here's a list of a lot of the other people I mentioned and got, and sorry that some of the text was repetitive, but that's because I got little important pieces from so many sources. You can read them there. And the whole list of references for all the specific texts used, they can be found in the original articles I published at the end of part 2 on Mexicolore, and the article also appeared in the February 24 issue of the Aztlander and the April 24 issue of the IMS Explorer. So once again, thank you all for attending. And I'm going to quit sharing my screen so I can see y'all. Well, I see Celeste's name. How do let me see. Has anybody put any questions in the chat? Marilyn says, Jim, you're not the only one with broken teeth. iPhone just got back from El Mirador and finally got to see the spectacular stucco mural depicting the hero twins swimming in Xibalba. Wouldn't that suggest that the Popol Vuh is more widespread in pre-classic times than just Xibalba? Oh, of course, but Xibalba, are you all seeing me big?
Yes.
All right, I'm seeing you big. You've unmuted yourself. Yes, of course. I'm sure they'll discover, if they discover any more mules, I'm sure in other sites that we see it more than Xibalba. But Xibalba was very important because that's where it's possible. It's possible. There's some scholars believe that it could have been even the same high-minded individual, that toe juice was pretty good stuff, who might have been influential with the stargazers, the guys who stayed up all night and watched the skies. That's where it could have all started. And they elaborated on what came from the Olmec areas. Lori says, thanks so much. Visited the ATM cave in Belize and it was fantastic. And thank you, Jim, says Cheryl, for an in-depth presentation.
I need that closed, honey.
Hey, how you doing? Carrie, you sure came in late.
Sure came in late.
I'm going to have to send you the link to the recording.
Yes, please. That'd be great. We got caught in a rainstorm.
Oh, really? It rained really hard here earlier. Water came all the way up. We had to put a towel by the back door because it was coming in the back door.
Oh God, that's a lot.
Hey, how you doing? There's Diane saying hi. You got your hand up. You unmuted?
Me? Yes, I'm on a little tablet, so it's too hard for me to put something in chat. But I have a question. I've been out of the loop for a long time. My translation of the Popol Vuh is the Dennis Tedlock one. I know there's a more recent one by Christensen. Is that
Right,
something you
Alan.
guys would recommend? Alan Christensen? Or just
Yeah.
okay. Oh, I don't want to get anyone
I have to
into
admit,
any trouble. I don't want to cause any.
I haven't read Alan Christensen's version
Okay.
like I have Dennis's.
Okay.
Dennis and Barbara stayed at my house for 5 days here in South Florida, and he gave me a signed copy. So that's always been my cherished possession. I wasn't looking for anything more or anything different, but I imagine, Alan's, I think he also was translating from Quiche. So I imagine
Okay, I didn't want
slight
anyone to say
differences.
anything that was awkward
Yeah,
or,
no.
yeah, okay,
Um,
okay.
Well, I would like to ask if Alan is actually there. Alan, would you please say hello? I was hoping that he might be able to step in and explain and analyze the name of the god Huracan as a Quiche word, not a Taino word. It's, I think, just one of those accidents that they look like the same thing.
yeah, Alan,
But they
Alan
aren't.
is here. He's unmuted. And perhaps, Alan, if you'll speak up and answer Barb's question and even tell us about your version of the Pupahu.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
can't
Oh,
see you.
goodness.
but I can
I
hear you.
can't see me either. So I thought I wasn't even connected.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sorry. Yeah,
You
I
could
did.
turn your camera on if you want to, if you want
It
us to see.
turned on. That's the problem. So I don't know why
Okay.
it's not showing up.
Okay.
Sorry about that. This is a new computer that the university set up for me, and I don't think they set it up completely right. So sorry about that.
Okay.
What was the original? What was the question about Huracan?
It has to do with the, of course, the name of the god, the analysis of the name of the god, which I understand is just straightforwardly one is his leg in
Yes.
Quiche, but
Yes.
it has become confused with the word hurricane, huracan in Spanish, which is a Taino word for the
Mhm.
big windstorm.
Yeah.
And I thought you might be able to straighten us out on that once and for all, so that
Yeah.
we're not confused anymore.
Well, that would be nice to clear up the confusion, but I'm not sure that I can. So yeah, Huracan is just one leg or one his leg, as you say. Kapakan is the word for earthquake, and that's two his legs. So there's no doubt some connection between the god Huracan and lightning
Yep.
in the text. He's one of the main lightning gods.
Mhm.
So there could possibly be some connection with the Taino word for hurricane, but I don't know if there's any way to prove that.
Well, that would be an interesting question for people like Terry Kaufman, who are no longer with us. That
Yeah.
I think to make that argument, you would have to establish that there are other loan words into Taino
And to my knowledge, that's the
from
only one that's
Mayan,
been proposed. So
and then also to explain what the connection was and when, when and where did that transfer take place. And my inclination, but I'm saying this is not someone that really knows much about it, but I am a linguist, and I've encountered these kinds of things that I think are accidents. For example, the Yucatec word for whole is whole in English. And I think that's an accident. I don't
yeah,
think that there's actually any kind of historical connection between those, and those accidents do happen.
yeah,
And it's important not to run off the cliff with them.
yeah.
But the word huracan in Quiche, which you could tell us better than I, one his leg is he's a direct reflex of the god Kawil, which Jim in fact did say. Kawil being the one-footed serpent god whose leg becomes a serpent. And he is a lightning god, but that serpent which his leg becomes then is the serpent which on the codex style vessels disgorges the old god Itzam. And there are several different categories of disgorgements of Itzam, where he's conjured by the snake lady in one case and does all kinds of sexy things with her, or he's conjured by men in another case and becomes the old god of the hunt, and he's holding a conch shell, and he has a deer antler, and there's just two different sets of mythologies, but they're all tied to the serpent whose open mouth disgorges the old god, and who is in turn the foot of Awil, or one his leg, who is the Quiche lightning god. And I think that to me is a very legitimate and very archaic connection, and I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah, that is fascinating. The Popol Vuh just mentions that there are three lightning gods that are that make up the heart of sky, and Huracan is the first one. So
Yeah.
obviously it's connected with storms and lightning, but beyond that, the text
Yeah.
doesn't go much beyond that.
Right. Okay, well, thank you.
Hey, Alan, could you elaborate on the question asked earlier about the difference between your version of the Popol Vuh and that of Dennis Tedlock's?
Well, that's that's awkward, isn't it? Um,
But I mean,
I
were
have
you
worked in
translating from
Guatemala since 1976 as a linguist, and I made a Quiche dictionary, and I am a trained daykeeper. So I've worked with the language for a number of years. My translation was finished in 2003. It's based on the original Quiche text. I don't know what you want to say. I never criticize anyone else's translation work. Translation is an immensely difficult process, and I respect anybody that tries to tackle it.
I mean, you were going to the original manuscript and translating it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, it's not
Okay.
taken from Spanish or any other language. It's taken from the original manuscript.
Right. All right. And so we have a question. Wendy's asking, does the use of 1 and 7 relate to their total 8 or something else? Like we have 1 Hunapu and 7, the 2 original twins, and then we have 1 death and 7 death. Can either of you speculate on what might be the connection?
Am I
Tom?
still unmuted?
No, you can speak.
Okay. Both Kame, or death, and Hunahpu are days on the sacred 260-day calendar. And of course, the calendar is made up of 13 numbers and 20-day names. So if you go from 1 to 7, you're basically looking at the first number and the midpoint number in a cycle of 13. So what it's basically saying is that when you say 1 death and 7 death, or 1 Hunahpu and 7 Hunahpu, you're including all of the death days or all of the Hunahpu days.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make any sense?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
And Thomas is speculating with the 13 that you mentioned, like I was saying, how there's 4 steps down across is Xibalba and 4 steps up in the underworld. It's 7 steps up to the top of the celestial world and 7 down. You know, 13, 7 being the top level, I guess. Let's see, are there any sites that relate to Mercury and the twins, any carvings of twins near the entrances of any major caves? Don't mean, I'm not aware of any carvings of the twins.
There's a painting of the hero twins in Nachtunich.
Inside the cave of Nocturnich?
Yeah, way deep inside.
Mm. So that's completely on the other, you know, like the farthest you could get from from Izapa. Over on the Copan side of things. That's interesting. Is Olmec Genesis and the Maya underworld too similar to be independent? I'm not sure. I've never heard too much about Olmec Genesis. I don't know. It would seem to be a speculation because there's just not that many surviving, you know, even calendar notations or stela or anything in the Olmec world that might give us too much of a insight into their mindset. so I don't know how to answer that one. Is Olmec numbering bars and dots written upside down and mirrored to those of the Maya? No, I've never heard of that. And again, I'd have to see, show me more examples of Olmec numeric notation. I mean, there's so much speculation, I think. Barb, don't you think there's,
Well,
I mean, we can,
we have the Epi-Olmec script, which is thought to be representing one of the same languages from the Mihesokian group, which was spoken by the Olmecs. And that's a very elaborate, very well developed script with bars and dots like the ones we have in the Maya. In fact, the assumption is that the Maya inherited the numbering system and the calendar from the Olmec.
right.
I don't think there's a lot of dispute about that.
And that, what was his name? Judson, or who worked with that?
Justison,
Yeah.
Kaufman and Justison worked with the Epi-Olmec script.
And that, was that site in the core Olmec area or on the fringe?
Lamohara,
Yeah,
I think it's kind of, I can't really tell you for sure what this, I don't know what the agreement is about the whole Olmec area. I mean, but it's got to be kind of, within it, perhaps on the periphery. It's not one of the core sites that we've known about for a long time. It was a
yeah.
total surprise to find that monument.
And I
Um,
wonder why I mean, that was a quality stela. Why we haven't found more of that kind of thing.
Well, there is more, but it's all smaller objects, portable objects. But there are a few other objects that have that script. I mean, John Justison would be the person to ask about it, or perhaps even ask him to present about it, because
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
he knows it best.
Yeah. Yeah, because the Olmecs are moving so much more into the forefront now. So we have another question. Any thoughts on the beheading of a twin refers to an eclipse? I don't know. I wouldn't think so that I'm aware of. I know coming up next month, the Aztlander presentation is by Dr. Ruben Mendoza, and it's going to be about the Aztec sunstone, and there's references in his paper I have in the August Aztlander, where the center image there in the Aztec calendar stone or sunstone is an image of a sun being eclipsed. So it might be, I don't see a connection to beheading, especially a lot of the Maya. I mean, the Maya, the Yucatec, believe that it's ants. Ants are eating the sun. So I don't see a connection with the beheading of a twin to an eclipse. I just personally don't. Boy, Donald Hales is sure coming in late. Any more questions? Did or do the Maya have any gods that were beneficial in any way to the people? I'm having a hard time understanding why anybody would tolerate the nasty gods. That's why you have so many shamanic little, I mean, ceremonies. I've even been in a couple where I mean, I was in one with in the village outside of Chichen Itza, where it was a husband and wife team, And I was with Maruja Barbachano, who's the granddaughter of Barbachano, who was president of the Yucatan back in the beginning at the Caste War times. And she personally is wanting to sort of recognize the Maya or give back to the Maya. And she was open-minded to this kind of thing, but we had what I refer to as a chicken ceremony, where we went there one afternoon and the people kind of analyzed what we needed, and we had to go early the next morning to the market to buy chickens, and they had copal burning, of course, and they would brush you with herbs and they were petitioning to whatever gods, it was all in Maya, but then they would touch the chicken and bring, so that the idea was the chicken was absorbing negative energies or whatever it was. And I only had one chicken used on me, but Maruja she had to have two chickens used on her, whatever they were seeing. So yeah, besides that, I mean, they still, I mean, the Chalk, he's lives in the watery realms and in caves, and they still petition Chalk for good rains, and like I mentioned, Hunapu for a good harvest. But I would say that petitioning the evil ones, well, you saw the pus and the blood and all that. Those would be, if that a person was suffering from that kind of a condition, I'm sure the curero would be mentioning petitions to those gods to help cure or help the person they're dealing with.
I think you need to go to the ritual of the Bacabs for the answer to that. They're not really, if they're petitioning them, they're calling them out, they're naming their parents. They're basically saying, I know your name, I know who you are, and I'm going to get you. That's the basic message that the curandero is giving to the sources of disease. They're not really, they're not propitiating them, they're calling them out. And we should assume that, I mean, the Yob that we see on the ceramics from the classic period, and you showed a lot of them, you know, they're very nasty looking characters, that these were used in sorcery. These were used against people's enemies, against the enemies of kings. And so they were used in battle. They were used in sorcerous attacks. And I don't think that they were, I don't know. I mean, the word propitiate is kind of a tricky word. I mean, if you're calling out a demon, you're trying to send that demon against something, I guess you could say that you're going to make an offering to it. But these characters are not the same as the gods that the Maya considered to be bedrock to their, not only to their survival and their fertility and the rains and so on, but their permission to even use the land they live on. All of that was dependent upon the gods of the earth giving them that permission. And so those are not the same gods as the nasty critters.
Right.
They're not at all.
And Diane Ruth says, all the Maya I know really believe in the duality of everything. Death is awful and messy and not what we want, but also necessary for regeneration. The ancestors are there under the land, and they are consulted and revered. And then Carrie is asking you, Barb, can you mention again the cave where you saw the great mural of the twins?
The cave is called Nachtunich, Najtunich. It's actually quite famous, although I'm not sure that they're allowing people in there anymore. I went there in 1987 which was a wonderful time to get there, but you had to walk 20 miles. And it's full of classic period paintings, and a lot of them have hieroglyphic. They are, in fact, hieroglyphic texts with dates. I'm still finishing up a book on the cave, on the paintings in the cave. I started working on it about 5 years ago, and for various reasons have set it aside, but there's new information coming in, and I really hope to get back to it pretty soon here, and maybe even get it done this year. But Nachtunich, it's actually pretty famous. You could just Google it.
Yes, I have the book.
Najatunich. That's it. And that's Andrea Stone's book.
Yeah,
There's a chapter in it by myself and Andrea.
great.
But the book is 1995, so it's a bit out of date in some ways. But yeah, it's a fascinating cave, and there's a painting in there of the two hero twins, and they're in the same aspect as you see on classic period ceramics. So
Are they wearing ball game attire, or how do you identify them as the hero twins?
well, they look a lot like there's a famous plate where you see the two hero twins helping the Maize god to be resurrected from the turtle.
Mhm.
You probably know that.
Yes,
You
Well,
know
I
that.
showed that, yeah.
Well, they're wearing the same attire as on that plate. It's clearly the same guys. You know,
Alright.
one of them has the jaguar pelt on his chin,
Mm-hmm,
and the one that's Hun Ahau has the spots on his cheek
yeah.
that characterize him. So yeah, the same guys, absolutely.
great. Thank you. Looking forward to the book.
Yeah, I think you can still order the book. I hope you can.
Mm-hmm. Arnold's mentioning ATM Cave. It's open, and he went there in May of this year. I was actually 2 years ago in Belize, and I went by the one hotel there that Jaime Alway uses. Some of his students will stay there. And he came out and he got in his vehicle, and I went over and said hi to him, and he invited me to go. He was taking some students to ATM, and he invited me to go with him, but I didn't want to get wet. So so I turned down Jaime Alway to go to ATM. But Arnold, I suppose you swam in and you were not able to take your camera. They prohibit cameras now, since one tourist dropped a camera on the one skull. And Arnold says, "Yep, that's right. No camera." Lori, has anyone read The Two Crosses of Todos Santos by Maud Oakes, early anthropologist? You have, Barb?
Yeah, long ago. I think I probably have it up on my shelf somewhere.
All right. And does anybody else have any questions? Diane thinks I have a great Jaguar shirt. This is sort of cheetah-ish to me, but yeah, that's my idea. Me and Spalanke. Now that my cat has decided to rest instead of bother the keyboard. Yeah. Arnold also says 5 macaques are named in Mayan calendric ... Are there 5 or just 4? I thought they were more like 4 direction. You see them portrayed in sculptures along benches at outside of Copan, the Sepulas. Does anyone know the planet associated with the twins? And Greco is Mercury. Well, the Maya, the Gemini, which I guess you would call the twins, that's
That's
the
a turtle, I think.
the
Yeah,
main creation. Yeah. plus Orion, I guess is what I'm getting to. Yeah, the twins are up smaller by the turtle. Yeah. But I don't think, I mean, I wouldn't associate it with a Mercury because the Mercury is, always moving, going around and around, whereas constellations are more permanent from our perspective. But it's Orion where as you're looking out of the galaxy that the main creation center is. Oh, 5 macaques with the axis mundi. All right. Yep. And the sacred calendar being 4 directions and the year bearer being interdirectional. Year bearer? Interdirectional with the axis mundi.
I'm just curious, is Arnold answering the question about what planet the Maya would assign to the twins?
No, I think he's answering up. Well, he just keeps making questions. I guess I mentioned the 4 macaques, and Arnold is saying 5 macaques. The 4 plus the 1.
Yeah, I just know of the macabre. Well, I know the macabres from Landa. I think you really have to specify which source you're going to. But of course, Landa talks about them as the year bearers, names them as macabres, and then they all have their own special names, and they also have their color directional names. And they are in fact the 4 year bearers, and there are just 4 year bearers. That's how the whole system works.
Yeah, and so going back to Carrie asking about which planet is associated with the twins, Alan's pointing out that the hero twins are identified with the sun and the moon. So it's not planets,
Yeah.
it's the sun and the moon.
Yes, thanks for that.
Yeah. Are there any white bison named Hunahau or Hunapoo?
We do have Opal Mayan Spirit. He was born on Mother's Day, so he's a Taurus. He was born on Mother's Day in 2012, along with a female that was born the day before and another male born the day after him. We just had one born on July 3rd.
Oh, okay.
And I was happy to see astrologically that she wasn't born on July 4th. If she had been born on July 4th, she would not have been born with the moon conjunct Jupiter. And her mother and her grandmother, the 2 matriarchs of the white bison herd, both were born with the moon conjunct Jupiter. So she had a reason to be born not on Independence Day, but the day before. So good on her.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to name her Sirius New Moon Spirit because she's born with her sun conjunct the star Sirius. So she's very special.
All right. Thank you for that. And who is iPhone? Is that Mark Almy? He says it's wonderful to be in the presence of such icons of Maya studies. The information is amazing. And has anybody else got any last questions? Let's see, it's been an hour and a half. All right. Well, if nobody's got any more questions, I guess I'll end the presentation. Thank you, Barb. Thank you, Alan. Thank you all the people who asked questions. And thanks to everybody for attending. And if you heard about this in one of my emails, you'll probably get an email announcing when when I post the recording. There's so many people that, like, we have 1,100, more than 1,100 Aztlander YouTube channel subscribers, and I've asked some of them before in little message, attend a live presentation. But there are so many people now that COVID has ended, and I guess there's a little resurgence, but people don't want to have to show up at a particular time and look pretty and and they like to watch a presentation at their own time with their morning coffee, or they can start it and stop it, and so I can understand that. But I thank you all for turning out for me.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, Barb, you're the greatest. Thank you, thank you. And maybe next year we'll have you be a Aztlander presenter.
Sure, just tug on me. I'll be happy to do it.
And Alan says, fortunately, his camera doesn't work, so he doesn't have to look pretty.
Well, we only have to look pretty from the top up, right? We can be
Yeah.
we can be stark naked down below, or be in our PJs.
I'm in shorts and no shoes in my bare feet. All right, thank y'all.
Thanks so much.
Good
Take
night.
care, Carrie. Thanks for watching this Aztlander video, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. To receive free monthly issues of the Aztlander Magazine of the Americas, contact your host, Jim Reed, at mayaman@bellsouth.net. Thanks again.